Hi, everyone. This is Michele Graglia.
This is Marianne Hogan.
Hi, I'm Adrian McDonald.
I'm Katie Asmith.
Hi, this is Anthony Gasals.
Hi, my name is Meg Morgan.
Hey, it's Jordan Trofe.
This is John Ray.
This is Ryan Van Duzer, and you are listening to the GottaRun Racing Podcast.
Hey everyone, we are back with another GottaRun Podcast. How you doing?
Howdy ho, neighbor.
Where's that from? What is that from?
It's from Home Improvement.
Ah, you know,
TV show.
Yeah, you're right. But I never watched an episode of that show, but yet.
You know, Heidi Ho Neighbor.
Yeah, it's a catchphrase.
It is.
And what's our catchphrase?
Every runner has a story.
All right. So what's happening in the world of your training for your next race?
Well, I had a little setback with my calf injury that raised its ugly head in March just before we went to Slovenia. So I'm dealing with that, but it hasn't stopped me. But what I'm learning is that zero drop shoes are not always my friend. As much as I love them because the toe box is so generous and I love the feeling of them, but I think it's stressing my calf a little. But other than that, I am...
Well, what are you training for? What's your race?
I am training for a 24-hour race called Sugar Bush Shenanigans in Prince Edward County, which is just south of Belleville, in September.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sugar Bush Shenanigans.
Yes. And I've never done a 24-hour before. I've never run through the night before. So this is going to be a big test.
Well, I remember you asking me if I'm going to set up a tent so you can sleep. I said, you ain't sleeping in 24 hours. No, nobody sleeps in 24 hours.
I'm not allowed to do 5 minutes?
No.
Oh, boy.
You can learn to sleep while you're running.
Okay.
I've done that.
I know you do that, but I don't know. You do it while you drive, too, but I don't know if I could do it. We'll see. And what about you, Norm? How's your training going?
Well, I got Lost Soul happening in September as well.
Yeah.
First week September after our Island Lake Classic race.
Yes.
I'm off back to Alberta to do the Lost Soul because we had the director on, Dean Johnson, I think first year, was it?
I think maybe.
Yeah, and he said, hey, if you ever can get off that weekend, come on down. I said, okay. And it just happened to be that way this year.
There you go.
So my training is, we have this 3 very quick hills called the Sisters in Hockley Valley, hour north of Toronto. And that's what basically the race is going to be. Lost Soul, it's a coulees, which is never ending running up and down the coulees for 100K.
Rolling hills.
Rolling hills.
Right.
So I'm mimicking that with these sisters near where we live. And hey, if anybody wants to join me for a never-ending back and forth running up and down the Sisters, shoot me an email or social.
Slide into your DM.
And yeah, let's come on out and join me for
even if you just want to do one loop with Norm, it's what, 4K?
Out and back, yeah, 4K.
Yeah, so...
And I try to do it in... Well, it's kind of like a beep test. You know, the beep test we used to do back in grade school?
Mm-hmm.
I try to do an out and back in 40 minutes, I think. So once I start getting over the 40, I try to push harder to try to maintain under. But anyways, I get stuck on the third out and back.
Right.
Now there is a mother, but I'm not doing the mother. There's 3 sisters and a mother, but forget the mother.
You ain't no mother lover.
Anyway, that is our training. What's happening in September and what is happening with you guys? Let us know.
Yeah.
Who's on the podcast today?
Today we have Brad Kernohan, whom we met at Sulphur Springs this past May because he was running 50K with his wife, Cynthia, to celebrate her 50th birthday, which was actually on the day of Sulphur Springs.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd never run 50K before. So we met them there. Awesome couple. And he was on his way to Tahoe, where he placed as the top Canadian and in the top 10, which is pretty amazing.
Pretty good.
He's 49 from Pickering. He's only started running about 8 years ago, so just after he turned 40. and ultras not long after that. And he's also had a finish in Puerto Vallarta at the Hikuri 100, Canyons put on by UTMB. And we think he's signed up for Tahoe next year, right, Norm?
I see it on his ultra sign up, but we'll see if he's ready for Tahoe again after this chat with us. Perhaps he is. Maybe he's not. We'll soon find out.
All right, let's get to it.
And here's Brad coming up.
Welcome to the podcast, Brad, and congratulations on your recent Tahoe 200 finish.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, very excited. We explained in the intro how we met at Sulphur Springs surrounding Cynthia's big 5-0. We'll get into that a little more later, but right now we'd actually like to go back to the beginning because for you, it's a fairly recent history as to how and when you got into running. So let's do that.
I guess, I met Cynthia, who's my wife, about 11 years ago. It'll be 11 years in September. And she's very fit, very active, running, spinning, yoga, hiking. Everything has always been a big part of her life. And when I met her, we joke that weekends didn't start till 2:00 because she would run 10K, do it in a 1-hour spin class and a 1-hour yoga class. And at that point in time, I was playing lots of sports. I was an ex-golf professional, so I played a lot of golf. I played a lot of slow pitch back then, very competitive, but I didn't run. And I didn't understand the concept of doing 3 activities before 1:00 on a Saturday or a Sunday. And so joke about it even today. It was kind of frustrating for a little while. And then I realized if this is going to work, I'm probably going to have to start running because this girl is an avid runner. And so I agreed at one point in time to go for a run with her. We agreed to go for 5K. I thought, I was a center fielder, so I was super active and we went for 5K. And after about 1 kilometer, I can't repeat exactly what I said, but it wasn't very nice. And I just said to her, I don't like this. I'm not interested in this. And then I realized that I really didn't have a choice. And so I started running 1, 2, 3K, and then I'd run 5K with her. And then she worked for Lululemon for 5 or 6 years. And so I think the first race I did was the 10K Lululemon race that I don't know if it even exists anymore, and it was pretty fast. Apparently I did it in, 43, 44, 45 minutes, something that I was told after was fast. I didn't know what was fast. And then we did a half together, and she would joke. She actually said it to me the other day. She's like, remember when we did that half together and we were at the starting line together? And as the gun went off, you said, so I guess I'll see you at the finish. And I took off. And I did that, I think, in maybe 1:43 or 1:44, whatever it was. And again, it was like, that's pretty fast, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like fighting all those people and weaving in and out of all those busy, it's a Toronto half, right? So it's a lot of people, yep. 10 or 15,000 people. And so I said, I liked it, but I liked the running piece. It was starting to grow on me, but I didn't like the road piece. And she said, well, go into the trails. She said, I can guarantee you there's a running group there. Show up there on a Saturday morning. And I did. And the rest is kind of history. So yeah.
Wow.
Met some great people and still run with them today. Yeah.
Your story sounds remarkably similar to ours because when I met Norm in 95, he played every sport under the sun and I played nothing.
Yeah.
And I quickly learned that if I wanted to stay with him, I'd have to join him because it's no fun on the sidelines.
But you got off easy because testing Jody, I made her jump out of a plane at 12,000 feet.
Wow.
And she jumped.
I did get off easy then, Jody. Good for you.
She jumped.
Yeah,
That's
there were quite
amazing.
a few tests. There were quite a few tests leading up to our nuptials.
And the tests are ongoing. The tests are ongoing.
You're always chasing, right, Norm? You're chasing the next high, I'm sure. Yeah.
Wow.
So when did you start getting into ultra running?
I did a lot of trail running out here. There's a community called the Rouge Valley Trail Runners, and I would run Saturday mornings with them and Wednesday afternoons or Wednesday nights. And I think at one point in time, I came home. Cynthia and I travel a lot. And I said, what do you think about going to Moab? She's like, I'd love to go to Moab. Why do you want to go to Moab? I'm like, well, I want to run a 50K trail race. She's like, oh, okay. So we went to Moab. I signed up for the 50. She signed up for I think there was a 30K. So we went. She unfortunately had a hip injury and couldn't run. And so she played crew, which was basically meeting me at the halfway turnaround point. And she said, "You were gray." It was my first race like that. And I didn't understand the excitement and how fast you can go. And so I ran that first 50K, about 4:34. I couldn't run that 4:34 enough. I tried. And from there I was kind of hooked, and then did my first 100 at Haliburton, which didn't go very good, to be perfectly honest with you, but learned from that. And, in the last couple of years, we've done a couple 100Ks and obviously Tahoe, and we have some pretty big plans for the future.
So that first ultra, that was called the Dead Horse. Is that right?
It was called the Dead Horse. Yeah, it was a great race. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that's the where it's just one climb up and over. Is that right? The Dead Horse?
Yeah. So you kind of climb up and down into a valley and then back up, and then it's a sort of it's an out and back. So yeah. And that last climb coming back is quite punishing, especially if you've been redlining it like I was for 40 some odd kilometers.
So you felt like a dead horse after you finished. Eh?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I did a relay race in Moab last year, Run the Rocks. Pretty special place there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very special.
Yeah. It's a place that we will get back to probably in the next couple of years, because we loved it there. It's amazing. It's beautiful.
Very nice.
Great hiking and great biking, and yeah, it's amazing there.
Yeah. Very good.
Well, this year has been a busy year for you. You first started the year off with the Canyons. Is that right? The Canyons 100K?
Yep.
Well, tell us, how did the Canyons go for you this year?
And why the Canyons?
Yeah.
Why did you choose that one?
When I finished my first 100-miler at Haliburton, and you two are local, so you know Haliburton, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it didn't go good. It took me 4 years to get to the start line there. The first 2 years I didn't get there because of injury, and then year 3, COVID happened.
Mm.
And so when I got to the start line there, my goal was just to finish. And I had lofty goals, like I think most people do in their first 100. And the unfortunate part for me was I blew my quads out very early, like within 40K.
Mm.
And I spent the last 120, but I wasn't not going to finish.
Yeah.
And I don't want to come back and do this one again anytime soon. And I finished that, and I remember getting to the finish line and saying, "I'm done. I've done one. I'm done. I don't need to do another one of these." And somebody said, "That's a very common statement at the end of a finish line. Talk to me in a week." And I remember getting a text message from one of my training partners, and he said, "How about Mexico and canyons?" I'm like, "When are those?" And so that's what happened. So I signed up for those. And I think, if I remember correctly, we put our name in the Tahoe lottery at the same time. So I went from nothing to, 3 pretty big ones. Then I had a 14-hour goal there. And that was it's really funny, right? Western States is obviously, it's just happened. It's a fast 100-miler for those elites. Canyons throws in some sections that aren't in the Western States course, and they're not super friendly, and they're not super runnable. And so it's a little bit misleading, I think, when we see some of the Canyons times compared to Western States times. But, for me, it was sort of a training run as well for Tahoe. And it was just to go out and kind of run a pretty easy race. And 14 hours felt like the right time with my coach. Mm-hmm. And I knew I'm a math major. And so I'm always doing calculations.
Yeah.
And I knew if I could just keep going and get it in. And Cynthia was at the finish line, and I was pushing it. And I think I don't remember. I think I finished in 13:52 or 13:54 or something. So I know that she was getting pretty nervous because she knew that was the goal. It was a great race. Again, very well run. Mm-hmm. Auburn is like just a special town. Like the people understand, right? They understand what running is to that community. And yeah, it was a good one. We had a great time there, and stayed in a really cool Airbnb while we were there. So that was a great experience for us too.
Awesome. Let's move on to Tahoe. So you said you put your name in the lottery for Tahoe around the same time that you signed up for Canyons. Were you watching the lottery for that? I don't know how they release the names for the lottery, if it's similar to Western or not.
Destination Trail releases the lottery names through social media. They'll do, like they did it again this year. So I think they do 30 at a time. I think they do 30 every 5 minutes or so. The neat thing is before they release the name, because they've hit your credit card with the entry fee. But they do that. They do that in waves as well, right? That was the same thing that happened the year when we got in last year for this year's rate. Yeah, I was definitely watching their social media to see what came up. But then, of course, I got the notification before my name popped up. So yeah, so we were definitely watching.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's run the numbers for anybody that's not familiar with Tahoe. Let's talk total distance, elevation, and
how much time do you have? Yeah.
It says 200 miles. It's 208 this year.
Always.
Well, imagine if it was 199. How upset would you be?
I know. Like you'd ask for a refund. It was about 208 based on sort of the average of everybody else's watch. I believe 37,000 feet of climbing and descent. I think it was a little bit more than that if you looked at the average of the watches. But again, it was quite a bit. Total time, the cutoff is 105 hours. So I think that's like 4 days and 9 hours. And this year, because of the Calder fires a few years ago, it's still an out and back to Housewife Hill. So there's basically 50K out, 50K back, and then 110K out and 110K back. I'm more like 115 and 115. And you don't get to pick up a pacer or see your crew for the first 102 kilometers.
Whoa.
So you get to pick them back up once you get back to Heavenly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a long way to go without seeing a friendly face. Well, not friendly, but a familiar face.
It is. It is actually. But I found that at Tahoe, I spent quite a bit of time running with some of the same people for, 10, 20, 30, 40 kilometers. And I think we clicked off a lot of the miles early on that way. You just talk about life and family and kids and everything else that's going on. And next thing you know, you've laid down another 15K and you're at the next aid station.
Right.
I was kind of okay with it and used to it. And I was really looking forward to having pacers for the rest of the event. Mm-hmm. And so I just think that first section, I know it's 100, you're not even done a third of the race. So it didn't feel like that much at that point in time.
Yeah. And then it becomes more of a safety issue anyways.
Yes, absolutely.
To have your pacers in the last. Yeah. But we got to backtrack a sec because I did skip ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say before Tahoe. So you had a bad, not bad, but you didn't do well at your only 100 miler before Tahoe. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then you jumped into Tahoe with a bad, inexperienced 100.
Isn't that what everybody does?
Yeah, pretty much. That's the ultra runner way.
But the thing is that there's a lot of 200s out there. So why Tahoe, number one, and then why jump into Tahoe 200 before having a better experience of 100? Whew.
Hey everyone. We've been testing out a product that's new to us on our long runs lately called Caffeine Bullet. And we wanted to share this brand with you guys because it could be a real game changer. I'm training for my very first 24-hour race and I've never run through the night before, so I'm a bit nervous about it. Product is called Caffeine Bullet. It's out of the UK and it was created by David Hillard, host of the award-winning Bad Boy Running podcast.
Isn't he the announcer for Golden Trail Series?
He sure is.
Oh.
All right. So they have a few different levels of caffeine chews. I'm just going to highlight a few for you today. They have the chocolate orange, which is 85 milligrams of caffeine, which is about the same as a cup of coffee. They have the mint tense energy chew, 100 milligrams per chew, which is the same as, let's call it an espresso. Then they also have one that I'm really excited to try. It's the Ginger Roars Vegan Chew. It's about 33 grams, same as about a third of a cup of coffee. But what's interesting is the ginger element, because sometimes you have issues with your stomach. And speaking of that, they're almost an instant energy boost because the caffeine is chewed in your mouth and it's absorbed quicker because it actually bypasses your stomach and it kicks in 3 times faster than gels.
Wow.
I know, right?
Sign me up.
Right? So it gives you that boost of energy exactly when you need it. They're also individually wrapped, which is great because you can store them in your vest or in your pocket and access them quickly when you need it. You can order them online. They ship from North American warehouses. And if you use our link, our GottaRun Podcast listeners will get 20% 25% off.
Whoa.
Pretty good, right?
I like it.
We've posted the links in the show notes for your convenience. And hey, if you've tried them, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, check it out.
Yeah. Why Tahoe? Probably Norm, because Tahoe was the next 200 that was open to run, to be perfectly honest with you. And that's probably not 100% the truth. I had done a lot of research. You learn a lot. And I felt like Tahoe was maybe the easiest of the three. Nothing's easy at 200 miles, but just from a technical, from a crewing perspective, from a distance, right? Bigfoot is a lot harder to crew. Mm-hmm. Tahoe's a very easy one to crew. And so that one felt right. As much as we've already talked about it, I'm a huge fan of Moab. 240 was probably a little greedy for a first one. And so that's kind of how we landed on Tahoe. The reality was, if the window was open for Cocodona, I probably would have signed up for that one first. But yeah, I would say, I think that was just the next one that was available. And so that's what we signed up for.
So now the training for such a big adventure like this, we live in flatland and we're going through hard winters.
How the heck?
What does your coach tell you now?
My coach lives at the base of a mountain in BC. We'd have some days where there'd be some vert goals, and I would remind him, that I live in Ontario. Like, the biggest hill around here is a dump that's been converted into a nice park, and it's maybe 90 meters. Honestly, I do a lot of hill repeats.
Yep.
You get really creative. One of the things that I think that I have an advantage of, or that I've sort of toughened up on, and mental strength for me is my superpower. Like, I won't quit. I just won't quit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you just get creative and get as much in as you can.
Okay. So now you're on the start line. Okay. Here you are. You're finally here at Tahoe on the start line. And this is going to be the biggest adventure of your life.
So far.
So what was going through your mind?
I was so excited. I had zero nerves. And so I was just super comfortable. Like, I was really excited. I was kind of itching to get going. Mm-hmm. I wasn't nervous. I had a game plan, and I kind of went out the gate, and it's a single track right off the bat.
Oh, wow.
Obviously the elites kind of take off and they do their thing. And I got into a little bit of a pack with some people, and I did make a couple of passes because there were some people that were holding up. And again, I'm a climber, and the first 17K of that race is uphill. Okay. But I was excited. Like, I was like a little kid in a candy store. I wasn't nervous at all. It is neat to stand there and listen to Candace's, if I hurt, get lost, or die, it's my own damn fault. Like, you watch that on video. So it was really kind of surreal to be there and hear that happen. But yeah, so the start was exciting, completely exciting.
Nice.
And the first 100K, you said you were without crew. How long did that first 100 take you?
We had planned for it to take 18 hours. Mm-hmm. So we had a strategy, a pacing strategy. And the strategy was simple: power hike the uphills, cruise the downhills, nothing fast, nothing aggressive, try and, save the quads for as long as possible, and then run the flats. We had the first 100K in 18 hours. That's what we had it pegged for as far as timing. And I did say so I had my wife who was crewing and pacing, and a friend of mine, Paul, who came out to pace. And then we actually had one local girl pace me for one section as well, because we kind of I didn't want the two of them to do 4 sections. It was a lot for the crewing and pacing. And so I did say to them, don't be surprised. So that would have got me back at 3 a.m. in the Heavenly Village. And I said, don't be surprised if I get here at 1 o'clock, and don't think I'm going too fast, but just, be prepared. And I pulled in right at 1 o'clock. And it was a pretty surreal experience for me. It was 100K, and I didn't feel like I had run 10. Like, I was on a high. Everything was no pain, no major issues, no feet issues. Everything was, if I had to rate the first 100 on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 10. Like, wow. I wouldn't have changed anything. Yeah.
Good feeling.
So it Yeah, it was a great feeling. Yeah.
Now, obviously, the first 100K, you mostly run it through the day. So tell us about the views that you don't get to see running through the night.
Yeah. So the neat part about the way they have the course now is it takes quite a while for you to get up high enough and at the right angle to see Lake Tahoe. But I don't know. For me, I knew Lake Tahoe was going to be beautiful. It is something else. And in my opinion, when you're on the north side of the lake and you look back and you see this, I mean, it's a big lake and then all these snow-capped mountains in the background. It's stunning. And in the summertime, it's obviously a ski town in the wintertime, but in the summertime, it's a lake and beach town. Like it is super, super busy. I know because we had been there a week, we had kind of cheated and we saw all the amazing views and stuff. But during the race, I don't think you see the lake really at its fullest potential for maybe until you get to the top of the first climb. So 17 or 18 kilometers. But after that, and you look to your right and you see it, it's very uplifting, right? It's so beautiful. And it's okay, we're at the top of this climb and I get this great view and you get to see the lake and even the rest of it. There's some open meadows you run through and you just feel like they're out of a movie, right? The whole place is just beautiful. So yeah, it was from a scenery perspective, it was one of my favorites for sure.
Was this the first year that they changed the course?
No, they did this route last year. And then the year before, I think they did something differently. They used to start on the other side of the lake. And they are hopeful that it will return to its full loop next year. I know that they've been told to apply for the full loop again, because I think the Forestry Service is hoping to have that section, get all the deadheads taken care of and open it back up again. And not just for the race, right? For the tourism there.
Right.
But yeah, I think this was the second year with that specific course.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, let's move on to the next 24 to 48 hours because now you're running through the night. Now you're getting to the point where this is the longest time on feet, right? You're passing that point. So what is going through your mind and how are you feeling at this time when you take that first step past the longest time you've ever been on foot?
Or did you even realize?
Well, yeah, no, I did. I remember making a comment. We ran through the night and we were running. That was my goal, was to really run as long as possible where it was runnable. I was never going to try and power through uphills. We're just going to hike them and I move pretty quickly going uphill. And so I wasn't really worried about that. And so my pacer, Paul, was the first one to take me out through the next section. And then my wife picked me up and took me into Village Green, which is, again, it's a beautiful section. You're along this ridge and you get to see both sides. You get to see the lake on one side and then I think it's Gardenville and on the other side. And it's amazing. You run along this ridge for 5 or 6 kilometers and then you go into Village Green, but going into Village Green is like a 6 kilometer, 2,000 foot downhill switchbacks basically on like gravel road. And,
wow.
And I remember like even my wife's like, you need to slow down. We were flying. And so from there on, that was the furthest I had been. And I remember, and then Paul picked me up again. And I remember saying to Paul, I think we were walking, you have to walk about 4 kilometers to get to the power line hike. And I remember saying, yeah, this is the farthest I've ever been. Every step is going to be the farthest I've ever been. You're kind of moving like you've gone 100 meters. I'm feeling really good. And I tried not to talk about it. I was, we were just kind of following the game plan. And there were times, even in that section, it was really hot. I remember leaving Village Green and it was really hot. And it was a road, so it was runnable. And I had just finished eating. I said, hey, Paul, like, we can run this, but I think the smart thing with this sun and this heat and this freshly black asphalt, it was so hot. I said, let's just power hike through this. Let me digest my food before the power line climb. And so we did. And I think making some of those decisions that might have cost me 10 minutes then probably saved me 30 or 60 minutes later.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's, yeah. And from then on, it was obviously the farthest I'd ever been.
Okay, last 6 hours. Now we're getting excited. Now the finish line is there. You can smell the barn door. The apple pie is in the window, cooling down. What's going on?
Yeah. The last 6 hours was probably the worst 6 hours of my life. It's really, no, it was and it wasn't. So I'd like to go, I probably want to go back to Village Green on the way back, because I remember leaving Village Green and maybe just to share, like, for me, at that point in time, I was in 11th. My goal was to finish this race. I'm going to be 50 this year. I always felt like I was living in rarefied air, right? I'm passing, and out and back, you're seeing the Mike McKnights, the Mika Thus, the Harrys, like these people, and you're like, geez, I mean, I'm not that far behind them. This is pretty cool. This is really neat. And so we left Village Green, and the 10th place person was in front of me, and he's a great guy. And I knew that he was having some issues. And as we got into that climb, I was still moving really good. My wife even said, like, so this would have been her second section she paced a section, sat out a section, then paced again. So it would have been 60K in like 12 hours or 14 hours. And as you both know, she just ran her first 50K 3 weeks prior to that.
Yeah.
And she said, do you think I'm going to be able to keep up to you? And I think so. I don't know. And it didn't dawn on me how many kilometers she had in her feet too, right?
Right.
And so as we started that climb, which was the reverse of that long descent coming into Village Green, two of my friends that were there crewing and pacing somebody else showed up. And so they kind of were going up Village Green with us, and it's uphill. And they're runners. They both run ultras, and I was flying. And I knew I was, and they're like, Brad, they were sweating. They're like, how can you be going this fast? I have no idea. Let's not talk about it. Let's just keep going. And after about 2.5 kilometers, and I kept saying to my wife, are you okay? She's like, just go, keep going. Just keep going. And we were moving, but 10th place was in front of me. And I said, we got to go and get him. And I'm not like that, but I was like, 10th? It has a good ring to it.
Now, who's telling you that? Who's telling you the placings? Your crew?
No, actually, at that point in time, the aid station was giving you that kind of information because they knew what position people were in. And I asked them, how's the person in front of me doing? And they said, he's got some GI issues, and he's, tired, hasn't had a lot of sleep and stuff. So Kevin's a great guy. We made sure he was okay. The flagging had been taken down in that area. He thought he was lost, and he was okay. We went through that section, and we had about 7 kilometers left before the last section, and Cynthia was in front of me, and we ran into a mother bear and 2 cubs.
Nice.
No.
Love it.
Yeah, it was cool until it wasn't. And yeah, we did. So I said to Cynthia, stop. And she said, what? And I said, there's a look. And she's like, oh my gosh. And it was a big female bear. And they're just black bears out there, right? But they call them cinnamon bears out there because they have a lot of brown in them that time of year. And so they can't so I was like, are we sure that's a black bear? And there was 2 cubs, and the 2 cubs scurried away, and the mother bear kind of got a little bit weird on us, and kind of like hid behind a tree, but kind of like kept looking at us. Like she wasn't hiding behind the tree because she's way too big for the tree. And so we were yelling and doing all the things to try and get her to move, and she wouldn't move. And so I very quickly picked up the phone and called my other pacer, Paul, because he's an avid outdoorsman. I'm like, Paul, I got a female bear with 2 cubs, and she isn't. What do I do? If she's not moving, you got to take the high ground and go around her. I'm like, she is the high ground. Now what? He's like, then you got to go underneath her. We just said, hey, like, we're going to be okay. We're not going to get in trouble for doing this. And the race was like, just get around her. Don't worry if you missed 200 meters of the race course. We could see where the trail made a hard left, and we could see. So we went down and around and underneath her. And I think at that point in time, I had said to Cynthia, let's just power hike the rest of this in. I was starting to get some pretty bad shin pains. And I think the bear freaked Cynthia out, and it was 7K downhill into Spooner Summit aid station, which is the last aid station. And she took off, and I just followed her. And so I had told Paul we'd be about an hour. So we called and said we got around the bear. They wanted to make sure we got around the bear. So we called and said we got around the bear. And he said, how long? And I said, probably like an hour and 15 minutes. I think we got in there in about 48 minutes because we were in the rest of the downhill. Anyway, so then, the last 6 hours, we got into Spooner. It was like an F1 pit stop. I just kind of wanted to get things done. Yeah. It was obviously in the night. Two of the females, the second and third place female, were way ahead of me. And so I just wanted to get it done. And one thing we didn't talk about that's super famous out there is they have what's called the Tahoe cough. it's degenerative granite out there. And at night, when you're running or hiking or whatever you're doing, you can see, it looks like a wall of almost snow or powder. People have been pulled from the race for it. It sounds like smoker's cough. I was fortunate to not really have any effect, but I heard lots of people during the race who had it, and it sounds awful.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Why does it only happen at night?
No, it happens all the time. The crazy thing is you see it at night because your light is reflecting off of it. But during the day, you don't see it.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you have a pacer in front of you, they're kicking it up, right? But you don't see it during the day. And there are some people that actually run the whole race with a buff over their mouth the whole time. And because of that. Yeah. Paul and I kind of took off and I even said to him, it's just 30K. We've got 300 in us. This is going to be a breeze. It's not. 30K is still a long way to go. Kind of just followed him. Yeah, I remember the back of his shoes had 2 reflectors on them. And that's really what I watched for 30 kilometers. And I felt like we were going in circles. I said to him, Paul, are you sure we're going the right way? Many times. He's like, yeah, why? I'm like, I feel like we're going in circles. He's like, we're not going in circles. We're making turns, but we're definitely going in a straight line. And with about 15 kilometers left, we ran into 2 headlights. And I said to Paul, who's that? Like, is that just hikers? He goes, no, that's probably Christine, who ended up finishing the third female. And I said, well, I thought they were way ahead of us. He's like, they were, but even though you're complaining a lot about your legs, you're still moving pretty quick. We went by them. And then about 10 minutes later, I saw another light. And I said, Paul, who's that? And he said, that's Claire. And I said, well, she had stationed an hour and a half ahead of me. You're moving. And so we went by Claire. And I've now spent quite a bit of time with Claire. I saw her at QMT last weekend, and then she went and did Hard Rock last week. Like, she's unbelievable. Yep. And so we went by them, and Claire's the consummate. She's fierce. And I knew that about her. I mean, she won the race the year before, right? And she went 10 miles off course and still won the race. And so I said, I can't run, but like, let's put some distance in between us. And so we tried for a little bit, and I was really struggling from a pain perspective in my shins and in my ankles. And so he said, okay, well, what do you want to do if like they catch us? I go, let them go by. Like, I'm just happy to finish 8th, 10th. It doesn't really matter to me. It's all the same. I always tell people, I saw the 3 headlights, and what happened was I kind of created this race for 2nd and 3rd, right? I kind of woke them both up. Hold on a second. And because they were racing for 2nd and 3rd. And so Claire, I saw the headlights and I said, yeah, they're behind us. Just let them go. Like, I just didn't, it in me. The pain was so severe. And Claire kind of went by me, and I always tell people that she kind of like just put me in my place and said, I'm the professional. You're just the amateur 50-year-old from Canada. And she was moving. And so the 2 of them went by me, and we got it done. I think it took us about 6 hours, that last section. And I thought that was super slow. But then I think I looked at one point in time, and I think it might've been like the 2nd or 3rd fastest time on that last section of the top 10. So it wasn't that slow. I think everybody struggled.
With no food too. With no food.
I was getting pretty hungry. I enjoyed the pizza. I enjoyed the pizza at the finish line. So
I was going to ask if you hallucinated any of the animals or the bear or the headlights.
No, I didn't have any. I didn't have any hallucinations. I would say the only thing that I think happened for me was just from the getting tired, and it didn't happen at night. It was more during the day. If you would see like logs or rocks in the distance, they might take the shape of an animal or something. But I wouldn't say like I was seeing stuff that wasn't there like you hear. I've never had that happen. I mean, there's a little bit of me that wants to experience what other people experience, but I haven't had that happen.
You have to go longer.
It's in the plans.
Wow.
Well,
big congrats for finishing top 10
and top Canadian. That's amazing.
Yeah. I was elated, to say the least. You know, the time was,
no doubt.
For me, it was pretty spectacular. So, and I do remember somebody asked me prior to the race, what's your time goal? And I said 72 hours. I said, if you do 72 hours, that's top 10, right? That'd be faster than Sally McRae did it. Are you doubting me? And a couple people said that. And I remember going, I'll just add that fuel to the fire. Right. And so I knew that. And I would say there was an ego. And the only person who knew my ego was my wife. And I did tell her that my ego was a top 10.
Very good. Wow.
I thought I had it in me, but you don't know, right? I would have been happy with just a finish. So
Of course.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, again, big congrats. And it looks like based on your ultra sign up, you've already put your name in the hat for next year. So what's going on there?
Hey guys, compression therapy is something most runners are familiar with, whether it be socks, sleeves, or recovery products, right, Norm?
You got it.
Compression plays a huge role in reducing swelling and inflammation, speeding up muscle recovery, preventing delayed onset muscle soreness, aka DOMS, and relieving muscle pain.
You guys are all runners. You know that.
We are very excited to be partnered with Air Relax Canada. In fact, we'll be offering free demos of their leg compression therapy at both Rainbow Trail Run and Island Lake Classic this year. So if you're signed up for either race, make sure you swing by the tent to try out their system. We'll have the 3.0 leg recovery system on hand. Not only that, but Air Relax is offering our listeners a 10% discount if you order using our link and coupon code, which will be posted in the show notes.
Check it out.
So on our drive home, we listened to a lot of I convinced my wife to start listening to trail running podcasts because she's obviously like now kind of 2 feet in and really, well, I think I had asked you in an email, do you have audio of her saying I would never do a 200 miler? Because I thought you asked her that when you interviewed her at Sulphur, but we were listening to a podcast of one of the girls who had just finished Tahoe on our way home. And I think we were somewhere between Winnipeg and Thunder Bay. And she said, I think I want to do, and I, in my head said, please don't say Tahoe. I think I want to do Tahoe next year. And I tried not to drive the car off the road and I looked and said, do you know how far that is? She said, yeah. I'm like, you haven't done 100 miler before. And she said, I know. And so I just said, we've lived life, we've accomplished a lot of things in a very short period of time. And we do the stuff that most people go, that's really hard. And for me, if that's what her goal is, she's always supportive of these things that I've done. And I think it's super important to make sure that you pay that back. I'm sure that you two have had those same experiences.
Yes.
Yep.
We both got in because when you apply for Tahoe or for any of those races, they ask if you want to run with somebody. You quite frequently see brothers and sisters and married couples or friends. And so they ask and they try and accommodate if you get in. And so we both got in. And so we're going to go there, I think, by ourselves. We're not going to have a crew. We're not going to have pacers. Here's why. I always worry about the crew. I don't want somebody to crewing by yourself, as you've probably both done it, it's hard.
Yep.
And now I'm asking somebody to do that for 200 plus miles for the course of which probably going to be closer to 4 days. And so we're just going to kind of pace and crew and take care of each other and make it just more of a journey. I think she's probably going to do a lot better than she's telling me she's going to do because that's what she tends to do. But so that's what we're going to do. Yeah, that's what we're going to do next year as a couple. And then I told her I would do that for her next year. But the year after is the year, Brad.
And what is...
So I'm also going to... So next year, I want to run Divide next year, the Divide 200.
Very...
So right back out. Yeah. And I know I sent you guys an email. We crossed paths. I drove through Blairmore that weekend. We were coming back from Tahoe.
Can't believe that.
And I didn't know that there was a race going on there. I would have, or you guys were there, we would have stopped. But so I'm going to try and get into Divide next year. And then the year after, the goal is to do the Triple Crown.
Wow.
And I'd like to put the Arizona Monster at the start of that. So that's Candace's new 300 mile.
I was going to ask you that because, yes, going across Arizona, what a way to see it.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
Well, hey, you know what? If you're looking for pacers, yeah, well, we may come by. We may come by. Yeah, we're looking for pacers. If you're looking for a pacer, we can pay.
Well, I'm just going to put that in my little notebook of people who want to pace. So yeah, so that's the goal. So that'd be 2026. Long time before then, but yeah, so we'll get through next year and who knows? I know the Destination Trail is teasing out a Colorado 200 miler now too. So maybe there's 5 of them.
Oh man. Wow.
Well, I always say to people, like, we're not getting any younger, right? And I think I probably got 5 years of doing this, and as crazy as it's going to sound, being a little bit competitive, like now that I finished in the top 10, if I never do it again, I'll be okay with that, because Tahoe was just a dream race for me.
Yeah. But
my goals have changed. What I'm doing from a training perspective is going to change drastically moving forward, just to prepare myself for that. But I think 5 years of 200s is kind of like, in my opinion, kind of like the old man distance. It's a slower pace. As long as you got the mental grit and you can live on, I did get 7 minutes of sleep at Tahoe. That's kind of the time tally. So as long as you can get 15 minutes of sleep, I think you can get these things done in a pretty reasonable time.
Well, now I know why you said that Cynthia's already telling you to practice napping, because she intends to get a little bit more sleep. So you're going to have to go on her schedule too.
Yeah. She's got the ability to sleep too. So yeah, it's something that I shared with you. It's part of the thing. One of the things that I am going to work on when it comes to training, which just sounds crazy. Practice napping. Yeah.
Well, you're the couple to watch out for now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's amazing, Brad. Congratulations. Really. It's
Thank you.
Quite a feat. A feat.
Yeah. Well, before we go on, you also volunteer for a manager of the SOS, right? It's the Save Our Scruff.
You got it.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Save Our Scruff is a dog rehome and rescue organization that my wife and I have been a part of almost from the very beginning. We're based out of Toronto, and what we really do, and we're kind of evolving as a rescue, because since COVID, the rescue world has changed quite a bit, because everybody during COVID got a dog. That's just what happened, right? People were home alone, and so companionship was big. And so we saw a massive spike in adoptions. We actually chartered, 3 or 4 airplanes from Dominican to Mexico, like literally the full plane full of dogs during COVID, just to help our rescue partners too. And so what we do is we work with specific shelters in Mexico, in the Dominican, in Costa Rica. We've been doing some work for many years with Northern Manitoba communities. Cynthia is actually going up there in August to run a spay and neuter clinic. And so that's the other thing that we do when we go into, it doesn't matter what community, whether it's Mexico, Costa Rica, or Manitoba, we go in and we bring volunteers in who pay their own way for everything. And we volunteer and help with spay and neuter clinics, because that's the problem, right? The problem is the overpopulation of dogs in these specific areas. In Manitoba, they become pack dogs and they become very aggressive. We're trying to help those communities, and we really will do 200 cats and dogs, and we do cats too, because there's a problem there, but mostly dogs. We'll do 200 of them in 2 days with usually 2 or 3 vets. It's pretty spectacular to be a part of. It's a really unique experience. We're always looking for more volunteers, but, and obviously we bring in dogs and we rehome them to families in Canada. And so this is our 10-year anniversary, and I believe we've done over 3,000. We've rehomed over 3,000 dogs. Wow. My role there, which is most of us are volunteers. I was voluntold that I was going to be the finance manager about 7 years ago. And Cynthia, who was a manager for a long time for the organization, is now chair of the board. So we have a pretty significant involvement in the day-to-day. We do have an executive director who's a paid executive director, but it's a lot of work for one person. So yeah, it's a great organization. We have hundreds. I think we have what we call about 100 core volunteers who probably put between 5 and 10 hours a week of time in. It's a pretty big undertaking. And we have a new rescue foster that's coming to us next week from Mexico. It's a dog that we met in Mexico back in February. It's the second dog we met in Mexico back in February that we're going to foster. So we have one coming in next week. So we're pretty excited about that. So yeah.
What's the website?
SaveOurScruff.org.
Very good.
Very good. Nice.
Well, before we let you go, we got to finish with some rapid fire, which I think you got a little taste of when we spoke to Cynthia at Sulphur.
I don't have a very good memory though, Jody. So
okay, no worries. All right, it'll be new. 70s, 80s, or 90s music.
It's gonna sound awful. I'm not a big music guy, but I take 90s.
Okay, all right. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, rum and raisin.
You don't see that very often anymore.
No, you don't.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that was popular back in.
It was really popular.
It was very popular in the 80s.
Yeah.
I don't see it because nobody eats. I don't think anybody eats it anymore.
Where do you get it?
I don't have that option being vegan. I don't think I've ever had it since I went vegan. So.
Oh, right. So I can't ask you the butter tart question then either.
Oh, yes, you can. Oh, you can get vegan butter tarts, and I'll have mine with raisins, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No doubt.
Would you rather be a professional writer, painter, or musician?
Writer. Yeah, I've always wanted to write a book.
Yeah. Well.
I don't know what about, but I've always wanted to write a book.
I think you know that the topic is it's about all your adventures.
Well, there might be a book come out of the household at some point in time, maybe, but.
All right, Norm. I think I already know the answer to this question.
Pick a superpower that you'd like to have.
I think I'm hopefully going to be the only person that picks a superpower. And I would have said before our conversation today, I want to be able to fly because I just think seeing the world from that perspective is really neat. But I definitely would love to have the superpower to be able to sleep at will.
You are the first to say it.
It would make my future adventures a lot more palatable, I think. So yes, absolutely. If I could just snap my fingers and fall asleep, that would be amazing. You could try hypnotherapy. There's probably a technique.
Yes, that's true.
For that.
Yeah, I've heard some things. People are like giving me tons of advice, box breathing and lots of different things. I think the problem is I have a very busy mind. So it's how do we turn the busy off?
I can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'll just, twice a week, Cynthia's going to tell me it's nap time, and then I have to try and sleep, whether it's 10 in the morning or 7 at night.
Yeah.
I tried right before here and I slept. So that was amazing.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
I think because you're a numbers guy, you're probably playing numbers in your head all the time without even knowing it.
Numbers and it's just, the brain has a hard time shutting down. So, but that would be a great superpower.
It sure would. And the ability to wake up on command too.
Yeah.
You can sleep 100 years.
Rip Van Winkle.
Yeah.
All right, Brad. Thanks again. This has been awesome. Nice to see you. Say hi to Cynthia.
I will. Thank you both for having me. It's been great. And I think we owe you some volunteer time at a race. So let's connect on that and see when we have some time and we'd love to come out and help support.
That would be awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Have a great night.
See you.
Okay. You too.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
And that was Brad Kernohan from Pickering, Ontario.
Who got the 200-mile bug.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wonder if he hadn't had such a wonderful experience at Tahoe, if he'd still be signing up for multiple.
I think so, because even though let's say you have a bad day, take a look around.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Like, you want to go back into that environment.
Right.
And even running into a bear, that would be awesome. Okay, you just stare at each other for a while and see which one of you is going to make the move.
Oh, geez, Norm. No, I don't need to have that in my life. Thank you very much.
The first thing I would do, obviously, is take out the GoPro.
Yeah, you would.
You see those videos where they try to do a selfie with a bear.
Doesn't end too well.
That doesn't end well. No, doesn't end well.
Anyways, well, excited to see what Brad and Cynthia are up to, and it's going to be interesting. Them not having crew or pacers, they're just going to test their relationship for sure.
Well, you and I did that a few times.
We have.
So in Slovenia the last time.
Yeah, you could say that.
So there you go.
Wasn't for 66 hours, though.
No.
Anyways,
But it was fun doing it together, and they'll have the same fun.
Absolutely. All right.
And if you like this episode, please leave us a rating and review. It goes a long way.
Yes, guys, it really means a lot to us. We got to get our ratings up so that we're still relevant in the podcasting world.
And we are also Patreon. Please support us through Patreon.
Cost of a gel a month. That's
Cost
it.
of a gel a month.
Actually, gels have gone up. We're cheaper than gels now.
Yeah, you're probably right.
There's been no inflation on our Patreon.
Wow, you just hit the nail right on the head. That is so true. Everything else has gone up, but our Patreon hasn't
stayed
the same. Thank you very much. Until next time.
Cheers.
Bye.